It had been raining since dawn. Not the gentle kind of rain either, the kind that felt like the sky was falling apart drop by drop just to match the way I felt inside. I stood there drenched in black, clutching a cheap umbrella that wouldn't stop shaking. Or maybe it was just me. Watching the casket sink into the earth didn't feel real, but nothing had felt real since last Thursday. The priest was speaking. I wasn't listening. Someone sobbed behind me. Someone whispered, "She was so young." Another said, "She loved her garden." But the loudest thing in that cemetery was the silence where my stepfather should have been. James Whitaker, gone, and not just him. Naomi, his daughter, my stepsister, the one who always called my mom Kathy with that fake little smile, gone too. Everyone else was grieving, but they were posting from Santorini. Yeah, I wish I was kidding. As I stood by my mom's grave, trying not to fall apart, my phone buzzed in my coat pocket. Out of habit, I checked it. And there it was. A brand new post from Naomi, healing in Santorini, new chapter. And right there in perfect lighting was James, holding a glass of wine, smiling like he'd just closed a big deal. My mother wasn't even in the ground yet, and they were smiling, like we didn't matter, like she didn't matter. I stared at that post for a long time, and in that moment I didn't cry. I burned, because while we buried my mother, they celebrated. That night I sat alone in her house, the same house she used to fill with fresh flowers and classical music. Now it was quiet, too quiet. It didn't smell like roses anymore, just mildew and absence. I curled up on the couch wearing her old cardigan. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think. All I could do was scroll through my phone, looking at old photos of us, her holding a sunflower twice her size, her painting in the backyard and her apron barefoot in the grass, her arms around me the day I graduated college. I whispered to the dark, "You deserved better than this, Mom." Then my phone buzzed again, and this time I almost didn't check it, until I saw who it was from. Mom, her name, her number, the same number I hadn't been able to delete, still saved as Mom in my phone. I stared at it frozen. I didn't breathe. Then I opened the message. Just 5 words. "Izzy, I need you home. Now." My hands went cold. My heart stopped. And for a long, long moment, I didn't know if I was losing my mind or if something much worse was just beginning. I should have ignored the text. I should have turned off my phone, gone to bed, and cried myself to sleep like a normal person. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because once you see a message from your dead mother's number, there's no going back to sleep. I drove through the storm like someone possessed. Every red light felt like a scream. Every street lamp flickered like a warning. By the time I pulled up to her house, the rain had slowed, but the air felt heavier, like the world was holding its breath. The front door creaked when I opened it. No lights, no movement. And immediately, I knew something was wrong. This wasn't my mom's house anymore. The scent of cinnamon, those little candles she always lit after dinner, was gone, replaced by something colder, sterile. It smelled like hotel lobbies and fresh paint, like someone had tried to erase her. I walked through the living room slowly. The family photos were gone. The bookshelf was half empty, her favorite chair missing. And then I saw the note. A torn piece of paper shoved deep under the drawer of her old sewing table, written in her handwriting. Shaky, rushed, terrified. It said, "If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident." I stared at those words for a long time. My hands were shaking, my chest was tight, and for the first time since the funeral, I felt it not grief, dread. Something had happened here, and it wasn't just death. I went straight to the hallway where Mom kept the security monitor. She never liked technology, but James insisted on installing cameras last year. He said it was for safety. When I checked the feed history, the files were all there, up until exactly 24 hours before she died. And then nothing. A full blackout, like someone had gone in and scrubbed it clean. And that's when my stomach dropped, because I remembered something else. 3 days before she passed, Mom had called me. But she didn't sound right. Her voice was distant, distracted. She said James is making changes to the will. He says it's just a precaution. I told her not to worry. I didn't think twice. But now I knew. I went straight to her office, tore through the filing cabinet, and there it was, a brand new will dated 3 days before her death. Signed, stamped, witnessed, and every major asset, the house, the business, the savings, all transferred to James Whitaker. Not me, not even partially split, just him. I couldn't breathe. She never would have signed this. Not willingly. My first instinct was to scream. My second was to call someone who'd actually believe me. I grabbed my phone and called the only person I trusted with the truth, Miles. He picked up on the second ring. Isabel. His voice was groggy. "It's Mom," I said. "She didn't just die." Something happened. James wiped the cameras. He changed the will, and I stopped myself. I didn't want to sound unhinged, but he was quiet for a beat. Then he said, "You're not gonna like what I just found." His tone sent a chill straight down my spine, and I knew whatever I thought I knew about James Whitaker was just the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there on the living room floor, surrounded by papers, files, and pieces of my mother's life, trying to make sense of how it all unraveled so fast. Miles texted me around 6 a.m. He said, "Meet me. I have something." We met at the corner diner off Hawthorne. It was still half dark outside, and the place smelled like burnt coffee and bleach. Miles looked rough, eyes bloodshot, jacket soaked from the rain. He slid into the booth, didn't even say hello. He just pulled out a folded document from his backpack, pressed it to the table, and said, "Here, death certificate. Catherine Cole, cause of death stroke, filed less than 3 hours after time of death. No autopsy." I stared at it. 3 hours. That's not just fast. That's impossible. Hospitals don't move that quickly. Not for natural deaths. And definitely not for someone who didn't have a history of heart problems. "No one questioned this?" I asked. He shook his head. "Nope." The attending physician didn't even sign off. It was a funeral home director. James pulled strings, big ones, and right then I knew this wasn't just shady. This was criminal. I went straight to the funeral home, pretended to be there for paperwork, but as soon as the clerk stepped out of the office, I slipped behind the counter and into the back archive. And what I found made my stomach turn. The embalming report listed a date and time, but the file had been printed before her official time of death. I read it 3 times to be sure. It was impossible. They had prepped her body before she'd even been declared gone. My hands were shaking as I left. By the time I got back to the house, my mind was spinning with questions. Why the rush? Why no autopsy? Why did James want her gone so badly, and who else helped him do it? I went back upstairs, hoping to clear my head. That's when I found the drawer. In Mom's closet, inside the lining of an old shoebox. A compartment I'd never seen before. Inside was a flash drive. Labeled in my mom's handwriting, Naomi, May 6th. I plugged it into my laptop with my heart pounding in my throat. And what played out on the screen was something I wish I could unsee. Naomi, screaming at my mother in the garden. Face red, hands clenched. "You ruined Dad's life. You think you're so pure, so perfect. You'll regret this. I swear to God, you'll regret this." My mother, calm but shaking, said quietly, "You don't know what he's capable of." And Naomi replied, "No, you don't know what I'm capable of." The video cut off, just static. I sat there frozen. That wasn't teenage rebellion. That wasn't a fight. That was a threat. I tried to message Naomi. Instagram gone, Facebook deleted, phone number disconnected. She vanished, like she'd never existed. I felt sick. All the pieces were pointing in one direction, but I still didn't know the full picture. Then my phone rang. Unknown number, blocked ID. I hesitated before answering. A woman's voice came through the line, soft, measured, terrified. She said he didn't just kill her, Isabel. She found out too much. Then the line went dead. No name, no way to trace it, no second chance to ask who she was. Just that voice and those words echoing in my chest, like a warning I was too late to hear. After that phone call, I didn't go back to sleep. I just sat on the kitchen floor, Mom's sweater wrapped around me like armor, trying to breathe through the weight of everything I was starting to understand. And then I started remembering things that didn't feel like much at the time. Little moments, quiet comments, but now they felt like red flags I hadn't seen fast enough. One night, just a few weeks before she died, we were sitting in her backyard drinking chamomile tea. The sun was setting, and she stared out at the garden like she was somewhere else entirely. Then she said, almost like she was talking to herself, "James thinks everyone's replaceable. Even blood." I remember frowning. "What does that mean?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just smiled. That tight, polite smile people use when they've already decided not to tell you the truth. Back then, I thought maybe they were just fighting. Married couples do. But now, I knew. It wasn't just a fight. It was a warning. I called Miles the next morning and told him everything. The funeral home, the forged will, the video of Naomi, even the call from that mystery woman. He didn't sound surprised, just tired. "Give me a few hours," he said. "I'm going to dig into James's background." By the time he called back, it was almost dark again. His voice was different this time. Tense. "Isabel," he said, "James had a wife before Catherine. Her name was Margaret Whitaker. She died in 2003. Sudden fall down the stairs. I felt the blood drain from my face." "What happened?" I asked. "Police ruled it an accident," he said. "No investigation, no autopsy." Sound familiar? He sent me the article. Small town paper, barely a paragraph. She was 37. I looked up old yearbooks. Photos. Margaret had dark hair just like Mom. Just like me. And in one of the photos in the background there was Naomi. Maybe 10 years old. Standing next to her father. Same dead stare. Same smile she wore in Santorini. This wasn't new. This was a pattern. And if what I feared was true, Catherine wasn't the first. Just the latest. I knew I needed to see James's office. He kept everything locked, but I still had a spare key to the house. I waited until I was sure he was gone some business trip in Vancouver, and I let myself in. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. Like no one had lived there in years. I went straight to the study. Desk drawers, filing cabinets, all locked. But I remembered something from when I was a teenager. He used to hide things in the panel behind the bookshelf. A narrow little compartment he thought no one else knew about. I pried it open and found a black folder inside. Inside the folder were 2 passport applications. Fake names, fake addresses, new photos. One was James, but the second, Naomi. Same smile, new identity, and a one-way departure form for Athens. My hands were shaking, my breath caught in my throat. They were going to disappear, wipe everything clean, start over, just like before. Only this time, it wasn't just Mom they wanted to erase. It was everything. Everything she built. Everyone who might stand in their way. Including me. I didn't even hear the knock, just the creak of the front door opening behind me and the voice I hadn't heard in weeks. "Isabel." I turned slowly. Naomi stood there like a ghost. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, like she'd just stepped off a magazine shoot. No apology, no shame, just that look she always wore when she knew she could get away with something. "You shouldn't be here," I said. She smiled faintly. "I just came to talk." That's allowed, right? Talk. I didn't answer. She walked into the living room like she still belonged there. Glanced at the bookshelf, the fireplace, the empty coffee mug on the table. Then she turned to me. "Mom was sick, Isabel," she said softly. "You don't know everything." She was hiding things. She was... No, I cut her off. She was scared. She was trapped. And she didn't get there on her own. Naomi blinked. That fake concern faltered for just a second. You think she was some kind of angel, she snapped. She didn't tell you what she did to Dad, what she took from him, and that's when I had enough. I walked to the side table, grabbed the flash drive, plugged it into the TV. You want to talk about what Mom did? I said. Let's play back what you did. I hit play. The screen lit up with the footage. Naomi screaming in the garden, her voice echoing through the room. You ruined Dad's life. You'll regret this. Naomi froze. Then she turned to me, eyes wide, and slapped me. Hard. You don't get to judge me, she hissed. You have no idea what she put us through. She made him miserable. She ruined everything. I stared at her in silence, because for the first time, the mask cracked, and what I saw underneath wasn't anger. It was hate. Cold, clean, practiced hate. I slowly reached into my pocket and clicked the voice recorder app. I had every word, every scream, every sliff. She stormed out without another word. Didn't even slam the door, just vanished again. And the next morning, the flash drive was gone. Not misplaced, not borrowed, gone. I tore the house apart, checked every drawer, every coat pocket, every bag. I knew I hadn't moved it, which meant someone else had. And that's when I started noticing things. The blinds in my kitchen slightly shifted. The back gate I always kept latched open, a cigarette butt on the porch. I hadn't smoked in years, and every night around 11 euro, the same black car sat across the street from my apartment. No plates, no lights, just parked, idle, watching. At first I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was spiraling, seeing shadows where there weren't any. But deep down, I knew. They were watching me, waiting. And Naomi wasn't done. Not even close. I was running on fumes and fear. But the moment Miles called, my exhaustion vanished. His voice came through the line, low, urgent. I got it, he said. What hospital footage? From the night she died. I stopped breathing. She was awake. Isabel. Alert. Sitting up. Talking. Hours before they called it. My hands were already shaking before he finished. He sent over a still frame from the video. There she was, Mom, eyes open, IV hooked up, looking tired, but alive. And in the corner of the shot, James, standing beside her, holding a folder. Every hair on my body stood on end. I had to know what happened next, but the hospital wouldn't talk to me. Said I wasn't on file as next of kin. Said everything had been handled privately by the spouse. So I did the only thing I could. I found the nurse who was working that night. Her name was Kendra, early 40s, single mom, worked 2 jobs, and still somehow looked more put together than I'd ever been. I found her through a friend of Miles who still worked in records, told her I just wanted to talk. At first she said no, flat out. Then I told her it was about Catherine Cole. There was silence. Then she whispered, I only have 10 minutes. Meet me at the diner on 8th, back booth. She was already there when I arrived. Nervous, eyes darting to the door every 5 seconds. She didn't order anything, just clutched a mug of coffee that had gone cold. She looked me in the eye. And what she said? I'll never forget it. Your mother, she said, asked for you. 3 times. She was in pain but lucid. She knew what was happening. She even tried to call you herself, but her phone had been taken. I swallowed hard. Who took it? She hesitated, then said, James walked in. Around 9 p.m., had a folder in his hand. Legal-looking stuff. He told me to give them a minute alone. I stepped out. Came back 10 minutes later. She was flatlining. I just stared at her, waiting for the part where she said she called security, called a code, did anything. But she didn't. She lowered her voice and said I knew something wasn't right. So I pulled a copy of the security footage before it could get wiped. Then she slid a flash drive across the table, taped to the bottom of her coffee mug. "I can't keep this," she said. "Whatever this is, it's bigger than me." I took it, and for the first time in days, I felt the ground shift beneath me, because now I had proof. Real proof. I rushed back to Miles' apartment. Neither of us said a word as we loaded the footage. It was grainy. No audio, but it didn't need sound. At 9:03 p.m., James enters the room. Mom looks up startled. He holds a folder, waves it at her. She refuses, pushes it back. Then he takes something from his pocket. A syringe. Leans over the IV line. At 9:12 p.m., her body slumps. The monitor spikes, then flatlines. James stands there for 7 seconds, then calmly walks out. Miles leaned back, stunned. "Oh my God," he whispered. "He did it. He actually did it." I didn't say anything. I couldn't, because the truth I'd been chasing for weeks was so much worse than I imagined. He didn't just kill her. He did it like it was business, like it was nothing. And now, I knew exactly who I was dealing with. The moment we watched that video, the moment we saw James inject her like it was routine, I stopped feeling afraid. Fear turned into something else, something sharper, colder. We weren't going to run. We were going to finish this. The next day, I did something that made everyone think I'd finally cracked. I went public. I posted on social media a calm, polished message. After weeks of pain and confusion, I've chosen to reach a private settlement regarding my mother's estate. I hope this allows all parties to move forward in peace. James liked the post within minutes. Of course he did. To him, this was a win. But while the world thought I was backing down, Miles and I were just getting started. We sent the hospital footage, the fake Willie offshore bank documents, and the forged passport files to the FBI. All of it. No names redacted, no safety net. We knew it was a risk, but we didn't have time to be careful anymore. Then, we set the bait. I called James personally, told him I wanted to finalize everything, said I was tired of fighting, that I was ready to sign over whatever he needed for closure. He bought it in seconds. We agreed to meet at the estate, the same house where he killed my mother. What he didn't know was that the room was bugged. Hidden mic under the lamp, small camera in the vent, live stream straight to the FBI agents parked 3 blocks away. I sat across from him at that glass table pen, in hand fake documents in front of me. He poured 2 glasses of wine like nothing ever happened, like he wasn't a murderer. "You look better," he said. "Less fragile." I didn't answer. He pushed the papers toward me. "These are just formalities. We'll put all this behind us. New beginnings, right?" That phrase nearly made me vomit. He tapped the pen. I hesitated. Then I said, "She didn't want this, you know." He paused, then smiled. "She was too stubborn," he muttered. "Wouldn't let go. I gave her peace." My hand froze. He looked up, and Naomi understood that. The room went silent, except for the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I leaned back slowly. "I see," I said. Outside, tires screeched, doors slammed, then everything happened at once. Agents burst through the front door shouting, armed, yelling for him to get on the ground. But James didn't freeze. He bolted. Through the side hallway, out the patio door, gone before they could corner him. Chaos exploded. Agents spread out. Sirens howled. The lead agent swore loudly into his radio. They didn't get him, but they got Naomi. She'd been in the guest house packing 2 suitcases full of cash burner phones and her brand new passport. She screamed when they cuffed her, called it a mistake, said she was innocent. But no one was listening, not this time. I stood there in the entryway, breathing, not smiling, not crying, just breathing. Because I knew this wasn't over yet. James was still out there. But now, he was the one running. For 6 days after the raid, James Whitaker vanished like smoke. No phone calls, no credit card use, no digital footprint. It was like he'd never existed. Naomi, of course, had plenty to say. She cried. She begged. She told the agents she was just protecting her father, that she didn't know anything about the passports, that it was all Dad's idea. But even behind that polished, trembling voice, you could hear it. The fear. Because the only person who ever truly protected Naomi was gone. And then on the seventh day, I got mail. No return address, no stamp. Just a plain white envelope slid under my door. Inside was a photo. It was my mother, laughing, backlit by sunlight in her garden, holding a bouquet of tulips. On the back, in sharp black ink, were 7 words. You don't know the whole story. Jay. I dropped the photo. Just holding it made my skin crawl. Was it a warning? A threat? Or just another mind game from the man who destroyed everything I showed it to Miles? He stared at it for a long time, then nodded once. I think I know where he is. 3 days later, we had him. Miles tracked a wire transfer. James made months ago a shell company funneling cash to a property management group in British Columbia. It was a long shot, but the FBI followed the trail, and what they found was a private estate tucked into the woods near Lake Okanagan. He had a boat, a fresh identity, and just 2 more days until he would have disappeared for good. The raid happened at sunrise. FBI agents moved in with quiet precision. No helicopters, no drama, just boots on gravel and steel against wood. He tried to run again. Of course he did, but this time there was nowhere left to go. I wasn't there when they cuffed him, but I was there when they brought him back. Face hollow, wrists bound. That same suit jacket he wore at the funeral. He didn't look like a villain anymore. Just tired, like a man who finally realized the walls weren't going to move for him this time. As they led him down the courthouse hallway, he turned to me. Just for a second. His eyes met mine, and then he said quietly, "She wasn't as innocent as you think." I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. I didn't give him the reaction he wanted, because I knew what this was. Not a confession, not the truth, just one last attempt to twist the knife. And it didn't work. Not this time. He turned away, and that was the last time I saw his face. The man who buried my mother, the man who thought he could bury the truth too. But the thing is, the truth has a habit of digging its way out. 6 months later, the courtroom was colder than I remembered. Not physically, just quiet, heavy, like even the walls were holding their breath. James Whittaker sat stone-faced as the judge read the sentence aloud. 35 years. For manslaughter, for fraud, for conspiracy, not life. But enough. Enough that he wouldn't touch another woman's life again. Not from the outside. Naomi sat on the opposite bench, hair pulled back, tears carefully placed. She testified against him in exchange for a reduced sentence. Played the part of the loyal daughter who just didn't know any better. I didn't hate her. But I didn't forgive her either. Some scars aren't meant to fade. After the verdict, I walked out of that courthouse without looking back. And for the first time in over a year, I didn't feel like I was walking through a ghost town made of memories. I was walking forward, Kendra the nurse who risked everything, and I decided to open something together. A small foundation, just a name and a phone line at first. But it grew. We called it Second Light, a safe space for women leaving abusive marriages, for the daughters, caught in between, for the ones who needed proof they weren't crazy. We didn't have all the answers, but we listened, and sometimes that was enough. Then, one morning in late fall, I found myself back at the coast. Fog rolled in like a soft blanket, the kind my mother used to fold at the end of the bed, even when she was too tired to stand. I stood near the shoreline barefoot in the cold sand, scattering a handful of wild daisies into the wind. Her favorite flower. I didn't cry. Not this time. just stood there breathing in the silence she never got to have. A few minutes later, Miles appeared beside me. He didn't say much, didn't need to. We just watched the waves. Then softly he asked, "You think she's watching?" I smiled, not the forced kind. A real one. "I hope not," I said. "I hope she's finally resting." And that was the truth, because peace wasn't loud. It didn't come with headlines or applause. It came in moments, quiet ones, the kind you fight for, the kind she never got, until now. I buried my mother twice, but only once as a victim. The second time as a woman who never gave up. If this story moved you, drop a comment and let us know what part hit hardest. We post powerful new stories every single day, so make sure you're subscribed and don't miss tomorrow's twist. We'll see you in the next one.